Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about the detention hearing in the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. All right, so now the United States, having dragged its feet and given excuse after excuse for not bringing Kilmar Abrego Garcia back, notwithstanding court orders to facilitate it and notwithstanding their having sent him to a high security prison in El Salvador by accident, now has charged him with crimes involving the deportation of migrants. But as I laid out at some length, they've taken this one scenario that everyone had known about, a traffic stop in Tennessee in 2022, and expanded it wildly in the indictment, with an extra conspiracy count that enabled them to basically affiliate anything that Abrego Garcia might have done with the conduct of 6 other people, including at least 2 who are very major players in an ongoing migrant smuggling ring. Okay, so that's the U.S., and from the start, it has been saying, as they've left him marooned down there, he's a serious guy, he's an MS-13 guy, et cetera, et cetera. And now they want very much to portray him in that light. Abrego Garcia, on the other hand, no criminal record here, no criminal record there, has been a member of the community raising young children, including special needs and the like. So now begins the sort of rhetorical war. We're at the stage, do you detain him? Do you keep him incarcerated in Tennessee, where the charges now lie? So we have 2 diametrically opposed portraits, because the United States has, not improperly, attempted to leverage all this evidence that is not really developed, not really there in the indictment. They might be able to produce a trial, but they can proffer it to the judge for what it's worth. And the judge can say, well, how do we know this? How do we know that? But couldn't be more different. So here's what the United States has to say. First, this guy is a long-time career criminal. At age 29, it's all he's ever done. Second, he's a member of MS-13, the notorious crime group, and indeed some confidential informant told them that he gained his membership by participating in some fashion in the murder of a rival gang member. Far from this one episode in 2022, he did it on a weekly basis again and again and again. This is all by way of trying to say the charges are very severe. It involved children, says the United States, first because there were instances where children were transported in unsafe ways, like lying down on baseboards and overstuffed cars, and that endangers children. So they lay out the facts of this real career criminal, MS-13, high-level, absolute criminal. And then they go into the factors, because in order to have somebody detained before trial, you have to show a few things. And what's at stake here in particular is how serious the charges are. The U.S. is using this to say extremely serious. And what is Abrego Garcia's likelihood of flight? If he's released, will he just fly the coop? And the United States says, oh, it's very high. He's facing extremely serious charges. When they're done, he's facing detention and then further proceedings to deport him. He's got nothing to lose. If you let him go, Your Honor, he will flee somewhere into the U.S. to be incognito and live his life there. So those are the basic submissions of a very hard-hitting memo that if you just read or start with the United States, it looks like you have a really serious criminal. Okay. Abrego Garcia responds with he leads with, and this is going to be a recurring theme as long as this case goes on, which I'll speak to in a moment. He's starting with, this is an innocent man who was deported accidentally and has had his due process, completely stripped away from him. And he had to wait down there and disappeared in prisons. There, it looks like he was transferred from one to the other, but with no communication with his family by the complete accident of the United States that knew it and wouldn't do anything about it. So he leads with that picture of who he is, but combines it with the idea that this guy's not a criminal. I think he's has a regular job as a machinist or a welder of some sort, and he's got no criminal history at all. The very starters is that he has no actual culpability, and he is in fact a normal father and member, not of Tennessee community. One of the other things that the U.S. says is he has no ties to Nashville. It's in Nashville because that's where that one episode, that stop where they let him go, took place back in 2022. But he has community. Oh, and one other thing, the U.S. says is he's got a history of family violence. And it's true that there was an episode a few years ago involving his wife where she got a restraining order against him. Now says that was a fight that's been settled. She dissolved it. Everything is good. She is in his corner here and has been fighting for his release publicly. Okay, back to him. He says the charges, the actual penalties, are not particularly severe if he is convicted of these crimes. He again is focusing on this really one count of a substantive transport of migrants, which we know he did. Now, of course, the U.S. has added this conspiracy count, which could render him criminally culpable for the things that other people have done. Were the jury to find he entered into an agreement, and were the jury to buy the United States version of events, which is back in 2015 or so, he gets together with the guy who runs the so-called taxi service, who's now in jail. That guy says, yeah, he on multiple occasions, he drove for me. The U.S. says he agreed to enter the conspiracy, thereby making him liable for everything, including the things that all of these 6 people did in their work for the same guy, Hernandez Reyes, who was in a Florida prison. Abrego Garcia marches through a number of different cases where detention wasn't found, explains how it's not the norm, goes through his version, and his version is more supported by the official record, right? Under the official record, it looks like he, other than this one stop, which didn't result in criminal charges, it looks like he's lived a basic model life. He's been a, solid citizen, raising his kid, etc. Other than the couple episodes that we know have happened, an arrest and a restraining order. He says he actually, as a result of having been unfairly, unlawfully, unconstitutionally detained, has a additional argument when it comes time, if that's what the U.S. Tries to do, to deport him. He'll say, no, don't send me back there. That's a place where I've already been sent mistakenly and was really treated poorly. And so he basically goes through, we just have these warring portraits. So how is the judge going to handle it will be very illuminating. Under the law, it's supposed to be a real showing by the United States to hold someone. In practice, in big high-profile cases like this, you often have judges kind of afraid to let someone actually be released, because if they then wind up leaving the country or fleeing, everything is on them. It goes back to that decision. And of course, this administration would have no trouble personally pillorying the judge who does it. So we'll see what happens. My best guess is we have very warring portraits, and you would think that without more proof from the U.S., the Abrego Garcia way of looking at things would prevail. My best guess, however, is that the judge will decide to detain him. That means he'll go, back into custody. And as I've said before, I actually think, there's a lot to find out about what the U.S. did here, and including about the bona fides of this evidence, which has in the indictment against him, which has the feel of having been really kind of massaged and whipped up through hearsay, conclusory statements by different co-conspirators, and really be just throwing the book at him, but built around this one 2022 episode that we already knew. But if Abrego Garcia is induced to plead, we'll never find out about all that, and the narrative will stay with him and his criminal conduct. And I think they're going to really go all out to make that be the result here. And then we actually will not get to the bottom of what happened when he was accidentally deported. They'll go back. Well, actually, let me say there's going to be a whole satellite litigation back in Judge Zinnis's courtroom where the United States will say the habeas corpus motion, because we sent him down accidentally, is moot now. We brought him home. He's going to say, no, it isn't. I still may be entitled for relief for the constitutional violation, and I want to go forward. If that happens, some of this may come to light. Not the facts or absence thereof in the indictment. So if he now goes back to prison, I think there will be a setting of a calendar, et cetera, et cetera. But behind the scenes, the administration will try very hard to get him to plead and make this whole thing sort of disappear to the public eye, at least have it just be a guy mistakenly sent down, but was a criminal, came back, pleaded guilty, and there you go. Talk to you later.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.